Hello everyone, Factoring Today's second video. We've already done the second summer 2017 season model roundup. You can find videos of that here on the homepage. Just scroll down the page a little bit, and leave a link as later on today it will be placed on the summer updates page, and there'll be a written report that goes out as well, so you can see the written version of the video. This is GWV Sunday Roundup. As always, we're going to get various things together. We're going to look at the Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation, what's happening with solar activity, and the weather for the next week to 10 days as well. So we'll bring it all together and see what's going on. And just say that tomorrow, of course, we've got the historic video. We're looking at 1980s summers tomorrow, dealing with 1984, 1985, and 1986. And then part 2 at the end of the month with the late spring Bank Holiday Monday back. We'll look at summers 87, 88, and 89 as well. So if you remember those 1980s summers, do check the historic video out tomorrow for your bank holiday Monday entertainment. We're going to start off with the radar picture. We've got quite a bit of rain piling into the southwest at the moment. Some bright echoes actually there down across southwest parts of England and through the Channel as well. This is going to be pushing northwards and eastwards very gradually through the course of today. This is how the GFS is seeing this rain developing through the course of today. So at midday, we know we've got the heavy rain down across the southwest of the country. Through the course of the afternoon, pushing towards Wales and some southern parts of the UK. Notice the north and east so stays dry. You can have a fairly nice day up there. By midnight, the rain is really quite heavy indeed across parts of Wales and southwest England. It's more showery in nature further east, but there is some rain even into East Anglia and southeast England too. And by 6 o'clock in the morning, it's just generally showery really across England and Wales. Dry though for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Bank Holiday Monday itself, I'm afraid, could have some showery rain continuing across southern parts of the country. The north looks best tomorrow. That's how we finish up, 6 o'clock in the evening on Bank Holiday Monday. Still with a suggestion of some showers, particularly down across southwestern England and through the Channel. So it looks like the heaviest of rain is going to be through the southwest with this. But there will be showery bursts elsewhere. The Midlands, East Anglia, southeastern England has been very, very dry over the past few weeks. There will be a little bit of rain, but I think the heaviest is actually going to be down in the southwest. It's quite an uncertain one, this particular scenario, however. Right, looking at solar activity first of all, then this is the solar disk on our side of this today from solarham.net. We're looking for sunspots, and there aren't all that many. There is one there and one there. Otherwise, not a huge amount going on the solar disk on our side of the disk today. From solarham.net, solar activity is officially designated as being at very low levels, so very low levels of sunspots and solar activity. Today, this is the GWV Spring Season Daily Solar Tracker. This has been updated by our friend James Ackrill. As always, on Sunday now, we have a look at the solar tracker, and we can see that the trend lines are starting to tick down a little bit. Remember, at the start of April, we had this big spike up in sunspot numbers going up to there. The biggest spike in sunspots for over a year, actually, what happened at the beginning of April, very quickly followed by a bit of a crash. And then we lifted the sunspots up a little bit, but nowhere near back to that level, which means that the trend lines, which are indicated by the thick green and thick red lines, they did push upwards with this spike, as you would expect. That was a very big spike in sunspot numbers. Now we're in this sort of level with sunspots, and the trend lines are starting to move downwards once again. I've spoken about this before. Of course, we're going into solar minimum. It's not a linear process, so it's not day by day that one day it has less sunspots than another. What happens is that you get spikes up, and then you decline down, then you spike up a bit, and then you'll decline down a bit more until eventually you arrive at true solar minimum, which will be in around a year's time. So what's going to happen is that I would suspect these trend lines will move down a bit more, and then they may go up slightly, then they'll move down a little bit more, and then perhaps go up slightly and then down, and so on, and then we'll arrive in the true solar minimum in around a year to 18 months' time, when we'll get several weeks, if not months, of no sunspots recorded whatsoever. So these periods just here, where we don't have any sunspots, they will become more frequent over the next year to 18 months. And then, of course, we get to around 2019 and we'll begin to move on into the next solar cycle number 25. The reason we look at these solar cycles and the reason we look at sunspot numbers is that there is a connection between low levels of sunspots and an increased risk of blocking, northern blocking, over the pole, and the northern blocking is the route to push out cold air from the pole down into mid-latitude. So when you're around solar minimum in the 2 or 3 years after solar minimum, you tend to find an increased chance of colder winters, especially so for Europe. I think it's less of a case for Asia, North America, although somebody did pick me up on this actually on YouTube and said that solar activity sunspots are as important for North America as they are for Europe. So I'm not sure about that, but that was the idea with that. I've always assumed that it's really the Atlantic and Europe that this is a connection to. Although if you've got northern blocking, of course, what can happen is that both sides of the Atlantic can be cold. So if the northern block is in the right position, you can actually get cold going down into Canada and North America and Europe at the same time. A lot of the coldest winters actually are a bit like that. So thanks to James Ackrill for updating the GWV Weather Solar Tracker. We'll look at that again next week. And moving on to the oceans, we did the ENSO update last night, of course, so things are stalled a little bit in terms of developing the El Nino. We're looking at the equatorial Pacific from Peru over there to Indonesia over here. We've lost the La Nina signal. That's what we had through the winter, of course, a very weak cold event. That's pretty much gone now, and we're sort of that ENSO neutral condition really across most parts of the equatorial Pacific right now. On the eastern side, it is warmer than average, but the warming that was occurring a couple of months ago in the eastern equatorial Pacific has eased off quite a lot, so we aren't warming at the same rate. Nevertheless, most of the model forecasting is to take things into an El Nino event through this summer. It's eased off the idea generally that we're going to have a big El Nino event, sort of brought that down to like a week, maybe up to moderate El Nino. That's what the GWF is indicating. But Jamstech is still going for quite a big El Nino event, but it looks a little bit over top compared to the CFS V2 and the GWF. Further north in the Pacific, it's actually quite cold up across the northern Pacific Ocean, and that could be one of the things that limits a little bit the potential for getting this into Super Nino territory. Over in the Atlantic, things are looking quite interesting. We've got fairly cold sea surface temperature anomalies in the northern and western quadrant of the Atlantic Ocean, but down in the southeastern quadrant of the Atlantic Ocean, actually it's looking quite warm. This area just here tends to be, in the summer and through into the autumn, this area just here tends to be a breeding ground for tropical storms and hurricanes. So if you've got warm sea surface temperature anomalies there, what can happen is that you get quite a few storms and hurricanes getting going. Of course, they push then westwards into the Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico as well, which is just there, and sometimes going up the eastern seaboard of America and curving out into the northern Atlantic and eventually hitting the UK and Europe as areas of low pressure. Now, it's a bit early to say that we are going to have a big-ish hurricane season, and if we're going to be transitioning to El Nino, you wouldn't really be expecting a particularly big hurricane season, but we just need to keep an eye on that. I think it does look as though we've got pretty warm sea surface temperature anomalies there off the coast of Africa into the tropical Atlantic Ocean, and that could well be something to keep an eye on if they're still there in the summer. Have a look at Siberian snow cover. That's beginning to melt away now. So still quite a lot of snow across Scandinavia, however. They've had a cold time of it over the past month or so across Scandinavia, and many parts there are still pretty snow covered. Further, excuse me, further into Siberia, we find that central and northern parts of Siberia still with plenty of snow, but it is beginning to melt now down in the south and the south, down into the south and the southwestern parts of Russia. So very gradually the snow line is being pushed backwards. Over the next month to 6 weeks, we'll find all of this snow melting away. By the time we get through to the end of June, all of this will be gone and will be completely snow-free. And then, of course, we'll be waiting for the snow-cover season to begin again from September. I think probably for the time of year, we're still a little bit above average in terms of snow cover, particularly for Scandinavia. A lot of snow still there across central and northern parts of Scandinavia. I've had some pictures sent through for the snow cover in Scandinavia. I'll be featuring those in the videos probably on Monday. Have a look at the Arctic Oscillation observed and forecast chart, and well, we can see we are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go quite strongly negative, actually. So the black line here tells us where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation. The red line's at the end where we're forecast to go. Through most of winter, we go back to New Year's Eve, which is just there. Through most of the winter, we was positive with the Arctic Oscillation, as you can see, with the black line being in that sort of position. Now, remember, the Arctic Oscillation is just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere in the North Pole. It isn't driving anything, just telling you what the atmosphere is doing. When it's negative, it tells you you've got high pressure over the pole, you've got blocking. And that's what we've got coming up over the next week. Actually, the Arctic Oscillation started going more negative around there. So early on in April, we've gradually been trending downwards. We've gone a little bit up just briefly. Where we are at the moment is there, but the red lines are all forecast to go negative and to stay negative actually through the first half of May, which is this period just here. So it tells us we are going to be seeing quite a lot of high pressure, quite a lot of blocking up over the pole. And the North Atlantic Oscillation, for once, is in sync as well. Again, this is telling us what the atmosphere is doing. It's not driving anything, it just tells you what's going on. The black line here tells you where we've been with the North Atlantic Oscillation. Red lines at the end where the NAO is forecasting, or is being forecast to go by the GFS ensembles. And you can see that again back into the middle part of the winter, we was generally positive with the NAO, but look at that, the red lines are all trending downwards. So it looks like we've got both the Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation going into really quite strongly negative territory through May. Now, if this was January or February, we would be expecting a really cold spell of weather. It isn't January and February, it's going to be May, so we're not going to be looking at anything desperately cold, but we are probably going to be fairly cool at times, especially if this blocking pulls down northerly winds. And interestingly, what can happen at this time of year, if you have blockings, that you can get a trough setting up underneath, you get a trough of low pressure underneath the block in summer, then it tends to be pretty grim, to say the least. It may well be that the NAO and the AO recover by the time we get through into the summer and they start to go positive once more. And even with a negative Arctic Oscillation, you can still get quite warm conditions, actually. Just depends where that blocking is sitting. I might have a look at this on the blog at some point over this weekend, because very often the worst summers are sort of negative Arctic Oscillation summers, because they have a block underneath, they have a trough, I should say, underneath them, underneath the block. But sometimes, if the block is sitting in the right position, it can actually drag up quite hot southeasterly winds through the summer. So I might have a look about it on the blog if I get time. Just have a look at the GFS ensembles. Then the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average, and we're a little bit above average at the moment. Generally, I think over next week we're going to be trending around the average with those upper air temperatures. As we go through into the second week of May, which is this part just here, we've got a lot of scatter up here. So there are a few members of the GFS ensembles that are actually producing near heat wave conditions, but the trend really, I think, is more on the cooler side. There are several members that actually look quite chilly there through that second week of May. So a big split in temperatures for the second week of May with GFS ensembles. From the warmest to the coldest members, we've got over a 20-degree temperature differential, so quite difficult to say quite what is going to happen there. In terms of precipitation, we've got showers coming up over the next few days. Looks quite wet for the next 24 hours. Then we've got showery conditions through the next week. I think there'll be a lot of dry weather with that. There might be some showers coming in off the east coast and little troughs threatening the south coast. But I think overall, fair amount of dry weather in the week ahead. Got a bit of a rainfall spike appearing there for next weekend. That's probably low pressure travelling underneath the blocking feature. And then through the second week of May, again, it looks fairly showery in nature through that period. But it's got such a split with the temperatures, obviously it means that it's an uncertain period, that second week of May. So I think probably best to leave that alone. Temperature anomalies for the next week, going from the 30th of April to the 8th of May, are still coming out a little bit cooler than average for many parts of Europe. The UK is included. Precipitation anomalies look very significantly drier than average in the next week for the northern part of the country. In the south, it's a little bit wetter than average down there. That is mostly because of the rainfall that's coming up in the next sort of 12 to 24 hours. I would expect these to be pretty dry again when we look at them next week. So finally, have a look at the generic charts. We've got the GFS here for Thursday with high pressure to the north of the country, stretched from northern Scotland to Scandinavia, bringing in this easterly wind. That's a real easterly. If you follow the isobars back, the air is originated from a very long way east, from Russia. So a proper easterly wind coming in on Thursday. Because it's May and not winter, it's not going to be desperately cold, but it'll probably be dragging in quite a lot of cloud. I'm not sure it's going to feel all that pleasant really on the eastern side of the country. Through into Friday, again, blocking is maintained. This time it's moving more towards Iceland and Greenland, so it is retrogressing a little bit, which means we take the pressure from there and move it there, as opposed to zonal, which is the typical flow where we take pressure from there to there. So by Friday, we've got high pressure centering around Iceland and Greenland. We're bringing in that easterly wind. It looks as though it'd probably be fairly dry, but I would have thought quite chilly. Now, into the weekend, this is the potential for some heavy rain down in the south. We've got these areas of low pressure here in the central part of the Atlantic. We've got the blocking feature up there, and it shows what can happen when you have blocking up here. You can get these areas of low pressure going underneath it, and that could threaten some wet weather to southern parts of the country next weekend. Still with those chilly easterly winds. Look how blocked it's looking by Sunday 7th of May. Intense high pressure over Greenland, proper block scenario there. Low pressure underneath it. Again, that could be threatening southern counties with outbreaks of quite heavy rain. The north probably is drier. And then through into the second week of May, what the GFS is doing is putting down quite a cold northeasterly wind. Again, we've still got those areas of low pressure underneath the block. They are mainly affecting France and northern parts of Spain, but it wouldn't take that much of an adjustment to bring some quite heavy rain up into the south. Further north, we're being affected by that northeasterly wind, with this big area of high pressure still sitting around Greenland and Iceland. And another really cold trough is going through Scandinavia as well. That's putting cold air down into Scandinavia once more. They've had a cold spring across Scandinavia so far. East WF looks like this. Again, we've got the blocking feature to the north of the country on Thursday, bringing in those easterly winds. It's a long fetch easterly as well. That block is firmly in place as we go through into Friday with those easterly winds. Into the weekend, again, we've got the risk of low pressure travelling underneath the block. There it is, through the central Atlantic. It's starting to travel underneath the block. It may affect southern counties with outbreaks of rain, but the real the real thing is that large blocking feature that's there over Greenland and Iceland, intense area of high pressure blocking things out. As we go through into Monday, the 8th of May, no real change still, maintaining that big blocking feature there, and up to day 10, which takes us to Wednesday the 10th of May. There's no real change really. The high pressure is still blocking across Greenland and Iceland. We've still got the low pressure underneath it, so that's the reason the North Atlantic Oscillation is negative at this point. We've got the high pressure up there, we've got the low pressure down there, which is a complete flip on where you normally expect things to, how you normally expect things to look, which is high pressure around the Azores and low pressure around Iceland. And this is pulling down quite a cool, even perhaps slightly cold northeasterly type wind there up to Wednesday the 10th of May. Will May be our first cooler than average month? As we see these charts stacking up, you certainly wouldn't rule out the possibility. I think the first half of May is quite likely to be coming out cooler than average. Whether that continues into the second half of the month will be the question. But it's not totally impossible that our first cold and average month may be on the way for May. The Gas Weather Vid's May month-ahead forecast will be released in a couple of days, probably on Tuesday. And of course, we've got Terry Scully's May month-ahead forecast coming up shortly as well. That'll either be today or tomorrow. That's it for Gas Weather Vid's roundup for today. Hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to check out the summer update, looking at around 11 long-range seasonal models for the summer. Don't forget to have a look at that. Tomorrow, as I say, we're doing that historic video of Bank Holiday Monday, looking at the 1980s summers. Everything will be back to normal on Tuesday. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.